Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to put on our court advisor hats and really analyze the massive geopolitical fallout following the War of the Unsealed Hour. Now, if you've been keeping up with the historical texts, you know the 72 spirits of the Ars Goetia tradition actually survived their first great conflict. But as we're about to see, survival was literally just the beginning. Right now, they're basically a nation without a homeland, and honestly, something much more dangerous, an army without a single commander. So we're going to treat this strictly as a diplomatic dispatch, documenting just how fragile the current alliances are and breaking down the total fracture of the High Court.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. Because yes, the 72 spirits survived the war, but now they are staring down a massive, messy, internal succession crisis. And it's not just about who gets to be in charge, it's a fight over the very definition of authority itself. You see, the war didn't actually end, it just moved inward. The lesser ranks totally expected the highest powers to bring some kind of order after the battle. Instead, they woke up to find that the crowns themselves had started to crack. The heavy hitters aren't arguing about freedom from some outside force anymore. They are literally arguing about who deserves to define freedom for everybody else.
So, here is today's intelligence briefing. We're going to run through the High Court fractures, the three visions of authority, weaponizing the bureaucracy, the empty seat of Solomon, and wrap up with the rise of shadow governments. Let's get into it. Part 1. The High Court fractures, inside the Council of Crowns.
So, this council was summoned by Bael, and they meet in a highly volatile chamber known as the Invisible Seat. It's essentially a psychological battleground where every single spirit perceives an entirely different reality, all based on their own fundamental nature. Just look at the extreme contrasts here. Bael looks at the room and sees an empty throne, just waiting for the first king, which naturally he assumes is himself because he represents sequence and absolute order. But Paimon, he doesn't see a throne at all. He sees a lectern. To him, it's a place where command should be announced through wisdom and knowledge. Then you've got Asmoday, who looks around and sees a workshop, a place where desire is hammered into a weapon, an instrument, and a law. And Belial? Belial looks at the exact same space and sees absolutely nothing at all. He genuinely believes thrones are the most useful when other people merely think they exist. So the council doesn't break down into some massive physical brawl. It fails because every high king in that room is so entrenched in their own reality that they hear agreement as surrender.
Moving right along to Part 2. Three visions of authority, Bael, Paimon, and Belial. This right here brilliantly illustrates the core ideological divide. You have Bael demanding unquestioned order, and he does this through absence and firstness. His whole strategy is building authority from invisibility. He wants to be everywhere, questioned nowhere, and obeyed before he even officially shows up. His argument is basically, if the list begins with Bael, then the war should end with me seated above a restored order. It's all about precedent. But Paimon completely pushes back on this. Paimon argues that power without knowledge is just an empty procession. It's totally hollow. He firmly believes that no crown should ever command what it doesn't deeply understand. So he's proposing that, sure, kings might sit above the host, but actual hard knowledge has to sit above the kings. Now, while Bael and Paimon are over there arguing about how to properly structure the hierarchy, Belial takes a completely wildly different route. He's selling the illusion of freedom without any of the actual burden. What's his method? It's incredible, really. He's convincing the prisoner that their iron chain is actually high-end jewelry, and then he turns around and sells them the key under the guise of friendship. He doesn't give direct commands. Instead, he distributes permission. He'll go up to the dukes and tell them, hey, you can keep your allegiance. You don't even have to kneel. He makes rebellion feel exactly like a promotion. By the end of it, every spirit believes they've somehow magically escaped the hierarchy, while simultaneously owing Belial a massive personal favor for the escape. It's brilliant manipulation.
And of course, we absolutely can't forget Asmoday in all this. Asmoday looks at this entire succession crisis and turns it into an invention. He's stepping back and asking, what is power actually for? To his mind, a rank that can't build, transform, or completely ruin something is just a fancy, decorative title. So he gathers up the spirits of craft and transmutation. He doesn't just want a crown, he wants to forge a crown that literally punishes whoever tries to wear it. He isn't interested in just sitting on the throne, he wants to completely redesign the conditions under which any ruler could even attempt to rule. He essentially turns a political conflict into an engineering problem.
Section 3. Weaponizing the bureaucracy and how the middle ranks react to all this chaos.
So, what happens when the kings are totally deadlocked? How do the middle ranks respond? Well, they certainly don't just sit back and watch the show. They realize they have power, and they actively weaponize the bureaucracy. Step 1, the princes become the friction in the system. They absolutely refuse to kneel cleanly. They offer just enough partial cooperation to get by, all while fiercely hiding their private loyalties. Step 2, the great dukes step in and start carving up the tangible field. They start claiming dominion over the winds, the dead, the sea, the fire, basically proving that they are the actual executors of pressure. They control the physical forces that literally move armies. And step 3, the presidents take control of the interpretive systems. They're the ones who understand that a command has to be translated and diagnosed before it ever becomes history. And holding the keys to translation gives them an unbelievable amount of leverage over those high crowns.
And this, right here, leads to the very first major betrayal of the High Court. But it doesn't happen with a dagger in the dark. It happens with paperwork. Because, as it turns out, even demons can weaponize red tape. You've got Gaap out there mapping momentary secret passages between chambers that by all laws of reality should never even touch. Then there's Shax, who literally steals a fragment of Belial's own promises and manages to sell it twice. Just a total scam artist, but a highly effective one. And Zagan? Zagan is altering royal tokens so they scan as valid in 2 rival courts at the exact same time. These high-ranked demons are intentionally creating conditions where betrayal is completely indistinguishable from opportunity. Suddenly, walking through any door becomes an intensely political act.
So the kings obviously retaliate. They get into this massive duel of declarations. They are literally fighting with definitions, because in this realm, strategically speaking, a solid definition cuts way more permanently than steel ever could. Bael comes out and issues a strict written edict. All ranks must reaffirm the original order, and the first king holds the absolute first command. Paimon fires right back with a counter-declaration. But his isn't written, it's sung, and it states that absolutely no spirit may command without first proving complete mastery over the knowledge required. Instantly, the entire host is fractured. You're either on the side that obeys written, traditional authority, or you're on the side that obeys interpreted wisdom.
Which brings us to part 4, the empty seat of Solomon, the ultimate deterrent.
Just as this ideological war hits its absolute peak, the spirit Andromalius makes a truly terrifying discovery right at the hidden center of the court. He finds the seat of Solomon. Now, this isn't a piece of furniture. It's not a physical chair. It is the raw memory of command itself, the exact conceptual space from which naming once became binding. The temptation here is astronomical. Whoever sits there might logically claim authority over the entire structural hierarchy. But, of course, there is a massive catch. Sitting in the seat means you have to accept the underlying logic of Solomon's binding. So the spirit who claims it gets the command, sure, but they instantly become the brand new prisoner of the very order they were hoping to master. It is literally a cage of sovereignty.
And the sheer reality of this empty seat just freezes the high-ranked demons in absolute terror. It's a stark revelation that every single available model of sovereignty they're fighting over inherently resembles a cage. This kicks off a bitter Cold War, fueled entirely by the deep-seated fear of becoming a prisoner all over again. For the first time in forever, the highest-ranked demons fall completely silent together. But don't mistake that silence for peace. It's not peace, it is fear wearing the mask of intelligence. It forces every single one of them to ask a really uncomfortable question. Can any order actually exist without just becoming another prison? And that fear of the seat is the exact reason why this succession crisis cannot be solved by simply crowning a new king.
Section 5. The Rise of Shadow Governments and the Three Alignments. Because this dispute simply cannot be cleanly resolved, the fractured court naturally organizes itself into three very distinct, highly competitive shadow governments. Let's break them down. First up, we have the Hidden Crown. This is led by Bael, Vine, and Person, and their whole philosophy revolves around sequence, inheritance, and restoring the absolute sanctity of rank. Second, we've got the Processional Crown, led by Paimon, Boer, and Stolas. Their camp believes that logic, deep interpretation, and hard knowledge are the only things that can properly discipline sovereignty. And finally, there's the Unbound Crown, led by Belial, Asmoday, and Gaap. They are all about constant transformation and this idea of conditional freedom, basically breaking away from the old grammar entirely. So now our assessments indicate the lesser ranks are forced to navigate this incredibly complex matrix. Every single future battle they fight is going to contain a second, hidden political battle baked right into it.
So, looking at these three shifting shadow governments, we really have to put on our diplomatic analyst hats and ask the most important question in the room. Who is actually benefiting from all this instability? When the kings are this deadlocked, who is walking away with the profit?
Well, the answer lies with the spirits who flat out refuse to publicly align themselves. I'm talking about specific neutral spirits like Astaroth, Dantalion, and Boone. These three are hoarding the most valuable resources: secrets, minds, and ancestral graves. Astaroth holds on to all the poisoned, dangerous memories. Dantalion is out there reading the minds of this entire divided court. And Boone simply refuses to surrender the dead to any crown whatsoever, brilliantly framing it as stewardship. They know perfectly well that refusing a public alignment grants them the ultimate leverage. In a court this fractured, neutrality isn't passivity. It's not sitting on the sidelines. It is actually the sharpest, most dangerous form of active participation there is.
The long-term consequence of all this maneuvering is totally clear. The old Solomon hierarchy is permanently fractured. It's gone. It's been entirely replaced by a messy system of competing interpretations. And honestly, the psychological toll this takes on the lesser spirits is immense. Just imagine having to live and operate under this system. When an earl is tasked with guarding a treasure, everyone is whispering, wondering if memory has suddenly become currency. When a president is teaching a lesson, everyone in the room is secretly asking themselves which specific law that lesson is quietly serving. Even when a duke simply marches his forces, everyone is looking down, asking exactly which crown actually supplied the road they're walking on. Everything is scrutinized.
This war is no longer about breaking the old order. It is entirely about surviving the new one. And that leaves us with a final, highly provocative thought to consider as we close out this dispatch. Current intelligence suggests that the very next major conflict is going to kick off when one of these crowns makes a desperate play to recruit the lower ranks by promising to erase the old titles completely. If that actually happens, and you are a lesser spirit just trying to navigate this incredibly dark political matrix, you have to ask yourself, when those old titles are erased forever, which shadow government's definition of freedom are you actually going to serve? In the dark, who do you really trust?